Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we're making a profound shift in how we actually view our daily operations. We're ripping away those comforting corporate slogans and diving into the mechanical truth of how value is created and, honestly, how it's destroyed. This isn't about, getting motivated or downloading a new workflow app. This is a calm, brutal look at the architecture of dysfunction and how one extremely simple mechanism can force a business to finally face reality. Okay, let's start with a hard truth that a lot of us try to avoid. You don't work inside a job. You work inside a system. It's this massive, intricate web of processes, habits, and hidden agreements. And it's a system that, frankly, nobody really wants to measure too closely. Because when you only look at your isolated job, it's super easy to write off a broken process as just a random accident. But once you see the interconnected machine, you realize that delays, rework, and employee burnout, they aren't accidents. They're literally the outputs of the system. Which brings us to the environment most businesses are stuck in. We call it the fog. The old way of working survives purely because broken processes stay visible, but unmeasured. I mean, everyone feels the waste, right? Everyone knows the handoff between departments is terrible. Everyone hates that one chaotic spreadsheet, but nobody actually fixes it. Why? Because as long as no one puts a hard number on it, nothing has to change. In the fog, inefficiency exists. Nobody measures it, so nobody owns it, and the cost just gets dumped on someone else. And let's look at who actually absorbs that damage. Broken systems don't survive because they're invisible. They survive because the cost is completely distributed. Think about it. If one single executive took the entire financial hit for a bad process, it would be fixed by tomorrow morning. Instead, the customer pays with disappointment. The employees pay with stress and late nights. Your top talent pays by having their potential totally wasted. And the business, it pays quietly with lost margins and churn. The pain is spread so thin that nobody is ever forced to own the bill. So, here is a crucial takeaway. That distribution of pain, it's not an accident. Allowing hidden waste to keep running is just a highly convenient arrangement for people who want to protect their comfort zone. It's a system literally designed to protect vague promises and avoid accountability. You have to realize that dysfunction continues not because people are ignorant, it continues because it's incredibly convenient not to measure it. That denial isn't ignorance. It's a business model built entirely on fog. So how do we blow this up? Let's talk about the paradigm shift. What happens when you introduce a strict penalty? We call this the -1 rule. Before -1, if there's missing value, a dropped ball, a delay, a failed outcome, it just gets swallowed by the fog. The company shrugs and says, well, that's just how things work around here. But after -1, you introduce a non-negotiable rule. Missing value has a consequence. Suddenly, a vague promise becomes genuinely dangerous, and a fake standard turns into a real financial liability. This -1 concept isn't just some marketing gimmick or a fancy badge. It is a literal truth mechanism. The -1 converts vague, fuzzy fog into a hard bill. When value is missing, somebody pays. And if the seller or the system operator suddenly carries that consequence, the entire machine changes overnight. Expensive lies just cannot survive long. Because when you attach a literal price tag to failure, excuses become incredibly hard to protect. And this brings us to an absolute law of operational reality. Measurement forces truth. Truth forces change. Period. When the cost of dysfunction becomes highly visible and gets charged right back to the source, the old mechanism completely shatters. This level of truth threatens every single part of the system that used to benefit from the fog. You literally can't hide behind slogans like, "We care about quality," when the cold, hard numbers explicitly prove that you don't. So once that consequence becomes real, a company is forced to ask a very uncomfortable question. It stops being about finding a scapegoat. The question gets surgical. Where exactly is the leak happening? Where did the delay actually begin? Which specific step caused the rework? Which hidden incentive is protecting the wrong behavior? You can't just throw corporate pizza parties at a problem when there's a literal financial bill sitting right there on the table. After implementing -1, you're not going to see your work the same way ever again. The psychological shift is massive. You completely stop seeing delays as normal. Instead, you see the real system. You start seeing value flows, where value enters and where it leaks out. You see bottlenecks, not as busy seasons, but as traps where value gets stuck. You see dead steps that only exist because nobody bothered to delete them. And you clearly see misaligned incentives, where people are literally rewarded for protecting their jobs instead of improving the actual system. You start to realize that these annoying little procedures are actively destroying value. It's visible waste that carries a hidden bill. you'll start noticing sabotage by omission. Quiet sabotage. It's when nobody escalates the problem, nobody measures it, and nobody wants to expose the leak. And once you fully grasp what that silent complicity is costing the business, continuing to cooperate with it becomes impossible. I want to speak directly to the high performers watching this. A lot of systems out there survive purely because good people like you keep absorbing the damage. You compensate, you improvise, you manually fix the terrible handoff. You work late just to protect the company from its own bad design. And sure, that looks heroic, but it's not. You are simply doing free maintenance work for a broken machine. Do not be the maintenance crew for someone else's dysfunction. Stepping into what we call the adult stance means flat out rejecting the quiet instructions that keep the fog rolling in. In a broken system, you're going to hear things like, hey, don't change the process, or let's not measure it, don't escalate it, don't make waves. Under the -1 lens, those instructions are completely unacceptable. They aren't neutral requests for peace and quiet. They are explicit instructions to keep leaking value. Taking the adult stance means having the courage to name the broken process instead of quietly surviving it. All right, moving into our next section, the System Refusal Map. This is our practical framework for actually redesigning these broken systems. This map is a continuous loop, and it starts with step 1. Name what's broken. Get highly specific. Which exact handoff is failing? Step 2. Redesign it. What has to be removed or automated? Step 3. Measure it. Define the proof. How will we actually know this new system works? Step 4. Upgrade it based on the data. And step 5. Repeat. Because your first fix is never the final version. The whole point here isn't to fix something once and walk away. It's to build a continuous loop that demands measurable proof and accountability at every single step. And the core engine driving that entire loop is this one principle. If value leaks, the system pays. Any system redesign absolutely must include a consequence for failure. What happens if the value is still missing? Who owns that response? If you don't build in this small, controlled version of accountability, those vague quality standards are just going to creep right back in, and the fog returns. Let's look at how we prove this model in the real world. Section, Implementing the Standard with NegBook. So NegBook is actually the first book in the world with a negative price, and the concept is beautifully simple. Either you read it and it helps you, or you read it and it pays you, because the seller carries a very real financial consequence if the promised value isn't there. They are forced to build a functional system. Thanks to this consequence-driven structure, there's nowhere to hide. You have to have a clear promise, concrete proof of value, a strict definition of what failure looks like, and an immediate measured response. It forces the creator to guarantee their own workflow. But look, you can't just slap a consequence onto a completely broken process. You do not put a -1 on the fog. That's exactly why we use the -1 diagnostic. It's the incredibly practical next step for businesses to actually map out their leaks before they ever offer a guarantee. It helps you examine your current workflows, pinpoint exactly where the value is bleeding out, identify missing proof points, and test out a controlled pilot without betting the entire company. You map the system first, and then you attach the consequence. So if your business is still relying on vague promises, ignoring hidden waste, and letting value leak unmeasured, it's time to stop. Seriously, don't just roll out a stronger marketing slogan. Start by seeing the real system. Map the leaks, redesign the process, demand measurable proof. And then, and only then, decide what consequence you are actually willing to carry. You can apply for the -1 diagnostic to kick off this process. It is absolutely time to stop relying on polite fog. Which leaves us with the ultimate takeaway today. This whole mindset isn't about being cynical. It's about caring enough about real value to stop protecting dysfunction. Once you put this lens on, going back to the old way just feels dishonest. So ask yourself right now, what hidden bills are you quietly paying today just to maintain someone else's broken machine? Once you see the system, you stop cooperating with waste.